Hey friends, so we are going to talk about annotation, what annotation looks like in AP Seminar. Most of you have been asked in previous classes to annotate something, but obviously annotating a novel for English class or a short story or a primary document in social studies is really different than maybe the expectations that we will have for annotating scholarly research here in AP Seminar. So I'm just going to give a brief presentation here. I do hope you'll forgive the sounds of my children in the background. Such is life when teaching this way. So the first question we have to ask is, what is annotation, and sort of fundamentally, what is the purpose of annotation? We have to think about annotation as first marking up a text for specific elements, for really identifying the things that are the most important, or frankly, the things that are the most challenging to you. And then especially if you're annotating in the purpose of getting towards writing a paper, you want to think about what's relevant to the argument you're going to be trying to make in that paper. Annotation is then highlighting, underlining, and circling those elements. So when you find those elements that are important, challenging, and relevant, you're going to highlight them or underline or circle them. And you're going to add commentary regarding all of those things, especially thinking about patterns, statistics, arguments, quotations. If you stop at 2, you are not doing the complete annotation that we are expecting of you. Just highlighting or underlining is not sufficient. You also have to add the commentary that goes along with it. So the first thing you're going to do when you annotate is make connections. So you can make connections between this text and other things you've read, or between this and other things you already know, or even to things you've seen on TV or heard on the news. You might interpret the information that the article is providing. What is it saying and why does that matter? You might identify quotations that you want to use and cite. This is a huge thing for annotation, is identifying, okay, this is a quote that I want to use later. You might evaluate the source, especially if you feel like it's particularly credible or if it's biased and maybe therefore not credible. And in annotations, you can also ask questions. Hey, I don't understand this piece of the argument. What is he trying to argue here? Annotation is not one-word comments like wow or important or this exclamation point. Okay, one-word comments you might occur here or there in your annotations, but these cannot be your only annotations or even most of your annotations. This might be, every now and then you annotate this way, but for the most part, we're looking for longer, lengthier, more valuable pieces of information. Annotation is not just random symbols like a big question mark or a star. Again, you might use these occasionally, but also provide some interpretation, some extension to those symbols. We already talked about this, but annotation is not just highlighting. You have to include the notes to go along with them. And it's also not just a summary at the end of an article. You might include some paraphrasing or some summaries as part of your annotation, but annotation is not just a quick thing at the end of the article. So when you sit down with a piece of scholarly writing, what are you looking for? What are you annotating for? The first thing you're looking for are critical details, things that are fundamental to the argument that's being made. This might be statistics, it might be graphs, it might be data, it might be conclusions, but anything that you're like, oh wow, that's a really important point that this person is trying to make. You should definitely annotate those. You should definitely annotate the article's thesis and what their critical arguments are. How are they making the claims that they're making? You definitely want to annotate for anything that is important to the article's line of reasoning. So this is the article's thesis, and this is how they prove it. You definitely want to include any kind of quotations that are particularly compelling. Certainly, if there is a piece of this article that's confusing, that at the end of it you're still not quite sure how that fits, you should annotate for that. What is leaving you unsure in this article? And then if there's anything that you can make a connection to, especially in a research paper, one of the things you're going to be doing is saying, here's what this scholar says, and here's what this other scholar says, and here's where their arguments intersect. So if you can say, oh, wow, I just read an article that makes a similar argument to this, you might put in your annotation, this is just like the Smith article on X, Y, or Z. And that's it, folks. Those are our annotation expectations for AP Seminar. Enjoy, and good luck with the next part of the project.